I never thought my parents would tell me I wasn't needed anymore. They adored my sister, who they called a genius, and said having one child was enough. "We don't need a failure like you. Carol needs a lot of money to grow her talents. If you can pay $15,000 in rent each month, maybe we'll let you stay." That was the day they decided to kick me out even though I was still young. My uncle reached out to me. I was confused, but he said, "Laura, I may not have much, but if you don't mind, I'd like to be your parent." I accepted his offer right away. My name is Laura, and now I'm 28 years old. But my life hasn't been simple. Before I tell you more about my family, I want you to understand my story. I was born to a father who worked an office job and a mother who stayed at home. We lived with my grandparents in my father's family home, where my unmarried uncle also lived. I started living with him when I was 3. He was 22 then. Living at home at that age wasn't so unusual, but my uncle had special reasons. He had always been weak and sickly, and even as an adult, his health made it hard to keep a steady job. He worked small part-time jobs a few hours a week, but it wasn't enough to live on his own. Because he depended on his parents, he often looked ashamed and guilty. I often saw my father yelling at him, saying things like, "You're a burden." But my father only did this when my grandparents weren't around. They loved both of their sons, strong or weak, without any difference. Still, the pressure of living together with less money after the recession made my father bitter. In front of his parents, he acted polite, but when they weren't there, he mocked and insulted my uncle. My uncle never fought back. He only looked sad and stayed quiet. I often wondered why he never got angry. When I was little, I once asked my uncle with a puzzled face why he stayed so quiet when my father yelled at him. He answered softly, "Because I really do depend on my parents." As a child, I accepted that. But now as an adult, I realize my father also relied on his parents, so he had no right to judge. If I had understood this back then, I would have stood by my uncle. As a child, I only felt uneasy whenever my father raised his voice at him, but I didn't know how to speak up. Things always seemed calmer when my grandparents were around. Under their eyes, my uncles smiled kindly, and my father hid his anger. My mother was too busy looking after me and my younger sister to notice the tension between my father and my uncle. Back then, I believed life would stay that way forever. But everything changed suddenly. When I was 7, my grandparents died in an accident. My sister and I cried endlessly, drowning in sadness and loneliness. I still remember my uncle's quiet tears. But what I cannot forget is my father's reaction. He laughed. Yes, he actually laughed after losing his parents. He didn't cry at the hospital, and he didn't shed a tear while preparing for the funeral. It wasn't just that he stayed calm. Even as a child, I knew he felt no grief. On the day of the funeral, I saw it with my own eyes. My father smiled secretly, thinking no one noticed. It wasn't a confused smile or one born of sorrow. It was pure joy. I could tell, even as his daughter, that he was glad they were gone, likely thinking about the money and benefits he would now gain. That smile horrified me. I cried, and maybe everyone thought it was for my grandparents, but deep inside it was fear of my father. At that moment, my uncle placed his hand gently on my shoulder and stroked it softly. My eyes were red from tears, but when I looked at him, I saw nothing but warmth and sadness in his gaze. Why was it like this? Even though my father and uncle were blood brothers, they reacted so differently to the death of their parents. That was the moment I started doubting my father. Afterward, his behavior changed a lot. He became much colder toward my uncle and often said cruel things like, "Why should I take care of someone useless like you? You should be grateful I even let you live here." He also said, "If you can't pay rent, then I should take all the inheritance." At the time, I didn't fully understand, but later I realized how unfair this was. Legally, the inheritance should have been shared equally between them. My uncle could have fought back and even taken legal action, but he didn't. Instead, with a sad look on his face, he stayed quiet and gave up his share. I worried about him and once asked, "Are you okay?" He smiled weakly and said, "I'm frail, and work isn't going well. It can't be helped." But day after day of my father's harsh words made his health worse. He grew thinner, weaker, and his face turned pale. Still, he kept smiling at me and telling me not to worry. But 4 months after my grandparents' death, the breaking point came. My father shouted, "You're useless. Get out." And just like that, my uncle left the house. "Uncle, don't go," I cried, pulling at his arm. But he gently moved my hand away, placed his palm softly on my shoulder, and said, "Don't worry, Laura. You're strong. You'll be fine, even without me." "But I'm worried about you," I told him. I knew he wasn't healthy and couldn't hold a steady job. The thought of him trying to live on his own filled me with fear. I looked at him with tears in my eyes. He said, "It's okay," and then he left. Saying goodbye to my uncle was heartbreaking, but as a young child, there was nothing I could do. Soon after, I also faced problems of my own. 1 year after my grandparents passed away, I was 8 and going to elementary school. My little sister Carol was 7 and about to start school too. Everything began when my mother mentioned that Carol had been praised for being very smart in kindergarten. "This intelligence must come from me," my father said proudly. Without thinking too much, he decided to have her take an IQ test. The results shocked everyone. Carol scored 200. "This is my DNA," my father shouted in excitement. I didn't fully understand how special that number was, but I knew my sister was gifted. "That's amazing, Carol," I told her. "Thank you, big sis," she replied with a happy smile. Those moments felt truly joyful. But sadly, they didn't last. Soon my father said, "Let's have her take entrance exams." My mother seemed unsure at first, but my father's excitement made her go along with it. From that day, Carol started going to tutoring classes every single day. Since my mother had to accompany her, housework was left to me. "Since your mother and Carol are busy, you'll take care of the house," my father ordered. After school, instead of playing, I had to rush home to do laundry and cleaning. If I didn't finish, I was scolded. Some days, I even skipped meals because the chores weren't done on time. "You're a failure. We don't have time for you," my parents yelled. My father also scolded me for getting grades in the 90s. "Why can't you get perfect scores? Can't you be more like your sister?" he would say. My mother also compared me to Carol, making me feel small, even when I tried my best. Even when I scored high on tests or did well on sports day, my parents never praised me. They didn't even notice me. All I ever heard was, "Be like your sister, Carol." They repeated it over and over like a machine. Sometimes they added cruel words like, "It's impossible for you. Carol is a genius, but you're useless." Carol really did have talent. She improved quickly in tutoring and soon passed her entrance exams. That made my parents even colder toward me. They spent all their money on Carol. I couldn't get new clothes and had to wear ones that were too small. Carol got delicious meals, while I ate leftovers. Carol went on trips, while I stayed home to watch the house. My parents openly showed their favoritism. "This child has a bright future. She'll take care of us when we're old," my father boasted. "Should we make her a doctor? Or maybe a lawyer? A politician wouldn't be bad either," my mother wondered. "We're so lucky to have such a talented daughter," my father said proudly. Meanwhile, I was invisible. My tears behind Carol's shadow never mattered to them. Then, when I was 8 years old, my parents made a heartless decision. "One child is enough. We don't need a failure like you," they said. "Carol needs a lot of money to grow her talents. If you can pay $3,000 in rent every month, maybe we'll reconsider." I was shocked. "That's impossible. What am I supposed to do alone?" I cried. "Why don't you contact your uncle?" my father replied coldly. "For now, we'll give you some pocket money. Figure it out on your own." They handed me a little cash and forced me out of the house. I cried and banged on the door, begging to be let back in. But no one answered. The door stayed shut. In despair, I walked to the station. Even at 8 years old, I knew how to ride the train. I asked strangers for directions and finally found my uncle's apartment. When I rang the bell, he appeared with the same kind face as always. He looked surprised but welcomed me inside. When I told him what had happened, he grew angry. "What are they doing?" my uncle exclaimed. I wasn't the one being scolded, but I still felt heavy with guilt for being thrown out. I didn't know what to do next. Tears filled my eyes. At that moment, as I looked down, my uncle gently placed his hand on my head. His hand was large, warm, and full of kindness. "It must have been hard, but don't worry anymore," he said softly. "But what should I do now?" I asked. "As you know, I'm often sick and don't earn much money, so I'm poor," my uncle admitted with a shy smile. Yet, as he looked at me, I noticed something different about him. His face seemed stronger than before, maybe because he was now free from my father's shadow. Then, looking directly at me, he smiled and said, "I may not have much, Laura, but if you don't mind, I want to be your parent. I'd like to become your foster father. I might not be very reliable, though." Before he could finish, I had already thrown myself into his arms. His chest was broad like my father's, but it felt completely different. In his arms, I felt safe for the first time. "You don't have to worry about anything anymore," he whispered. Tears of relief rolled down my cheeks as he stroked my back gently, treating me with the love of a true parent. From then on, my uncle raised me. Life with him wasn't easy. He was poor and often unwell, but our home was filled with warmth. Laughter, which I had forgotten while living with my parents, returned to my life. Though we had little, I never felt lonely. My uncle gave me endless love. I was deeply grateful, and I lived each day trying my best. Whenever I worked hard, he always praised me. Even if I failed, he valued my effort. His words encouraged me to keep going, and little by little, I stopped thinking about my parents, who had never once praised me. I grew up healthy under his care, and before I realized it, 18 years had passed. Now I am 28 years old, and suddenly, I find myself standing face to face with a familiar figure from my past. "Laura, have you been well?" my father asks with a smile. His voice pulls me back to memories I had long tried to forget. I looked at my father. He had aged a lot, his hair thin and gray, but my eyes were filled with coldness. And, with good reason. My thoughts were simple. "What do you want now?" Ignoring my expression, my father said, "Let's forget the past and live together as a family again." My reaction was quick. "What? Live as a family? You must be joking." He sneered. "Figures. A failure always has a bad attitude. Maybe it's time to re-educate you." "That's enough. Please leave," I said firmly as he tried to step into my apartment. Then my mother joined in, making things worse. "Laura, don't be stubborn. Accept our help. You can't be happy living in this rundown place," she blurted out. "You have nothing to do with this. Please go," I told her. "No need to act so proud. Just let us in," she pressed. "No. Go home. Let us in. Go home." Even though they were older, they pushed with more strength than I expected. Together, they were hard to hold back. It turned into a childish shoving match at the door. I managed to stay calm until my father tried to cross the threshold. Then I pushed him hard. Ah! Both of my parents tumbled backward and fell on the ground. I stood above them, looking down. "You're so annoying. Just leave already, I'm busy," I said. "What did you just say? Is that how you talk to your parents?" my father shouted. "I stopped seeing you as parents the moment you threw me away," I said coldly. "But we took care of you until you were 8, my mother argued. "Until 8? If there was ever a time I was cared for, it was only when my grandparents were alive," I replied sharply. "Yet you survived, didn't you? That doesn't give you the right to act all high and mighty," my father snapped. They struggled to stand, holding their backs. Even though they were only in their 50s, they already looked like they were in their 70ths or 80ths. "You were the ones who said it yourselves," I reminded them. "Carol was enough for you. With your genius daughter, you didn't need me. So why come to me now?" My words made my father grimace. He answered in an irritated tone. "Something happened to Carol, didn't it? What? Did she get in trouble? She became a lawyer, right?" "That's amazing," I said flatly. Just what you'd expect from someone with an IQ of 150. I paused. Or so we thought, until she suddenly disappeared. "That's quite surprising," I added, watching their faces pale. I listened as they explained. Carol had graduated from law school, gone to grad school, taken the bar exam, and even though she failed the first time, she eventually passed and became a licensed lawyer. She finished her training and had a good career. So, why did she go missing after all that? She left a note that said, "I won't be taking care of you too." Then she disappeared. That's the tough situation, I said. So, basically, she abandoned you. Congratulations. There's nothing to celebrate, my mother shouted. That ungrateful child. After everything we did for her, this is how she repays us. I looked at them coldly. Well, I guess that's what happens when there's no real love. You didn't love her. You controlled her. You based everything on an IQ score. You forced your own selfish dreams on her and called it affection. No wonder she walked away. They looked uncomfortable, but then my father spoke again. The company went under. With the way things are, that's not surprising. We barely got any severance pay, and unemployment benefits are about to run out. That's great news, I said with a smirk. It's not great at all. It's almost impossible to find a new job at our age, my father snapped. Their frustration only made me shrug. Then they said it, the reason they had really come. That's why we want you to take care of us. My smile vanished. No. What did you say? How can you abandon your own parents like that? The only real parent I have is my uncle. He's the one who raised me since I was 8, I said firmly. My father froze, speechless. You knew I lived with my uncle when you came here, didn't you? So, why act surprised now? I asked. You actually think of him as your father? My mother said, shocked. Yes. My uncle gave me real love, so he is my true father. Parents who don't love their children aren't parents at all. My words left them stunned. Even though he was sick and weak, my uncle still worked hard to support me. I wanted to repay him, so I worked hard too. Wait, my father said slowly. Does that mean you actually have a proper job? Well, kind of, I replied. I shrugged, but then my father suddenly grabbed my shoulder tightly. Let go of me, I said. So you're angry and a little embarrassed, right? He said. Please listen to me. There's no need. I already understand everything, I answered. You were lonely, weren't you? You're upset because your sister got all the attention. But deep down, you're happy to see your parents, aren't you? He insisted. Stop making up stories, I said firmly. Don't worry. From now on, we'll be proper parents and stay by your side, he added. I had no idea what he was talking about. For a moment, I wondered if he was already losing his mind. I just stared at them, and their ridiculous faces made me burst into laughter. Why are you laughing? Is it because you're happy? My mother asked. Happy? Not at all, I said coldly. Just so you know, in the last 8 years, I never once thought about either of you. Thanks to my uncle, I had a full and happy life. They stared at me in shock as I went on. Actually, I received a scholarship and graduated from university. Oh, really? Then you must have gotten into a good company, my father said. Yes. I got a job at a large, well-known corporation, I replied. That's wonderful to hear, my mother said with forced joy. And through an unexpected connection, I also got married, I added. Oh, then I must meet your husband and give my greetings, she said quickly. No. That won't be necessary. It's only proper that I should. That's impossible. He's overseas right now, I said. Oh, I see. Wait, what? And by the way, my uncle is also overseas, I added. What? Your uncle too? I thought you were living here alone. I figured your sickly uncle had already. Don't assume my uncle is dead. He received a work assignment abroad. Since the environment there is good for his health, he went too. Now he spends his days happily playing with my children. You have kids too? My parents looked completely stunned, unable to keep up with all the things I was saying. I smiled brightly. At first, Uncle didn't want to live with us, but in the end, he agreed. Now we're living happily together as one family. Well, in that case, we could move overseas too, my father said quickly. Sure, do whatever you want. But we won't live together. And I will not take care of you. You'll have to use your own money, I told them. That's impossible. Are you really going to abandon your parents? You're the ones who abandoned me first, I snapped. My patience finally broke at their selfish demands. Their faces turned pale. I don't owe you anything, I said coldly. But I owe everything to my uncle. From now on, I'll focus on repaying him for all he has done for me. That may be so, my mother said weakly, but at least send us a little money. I told them my uncle had lived in this old apartment all this time, but now he finally agreed to leave and come live with us overseas. I was only here to finish the paperwork.
What?
You're leaving? My father asked in shock. It's already done. I'm just returning the keys. After that, I'll go back to my home overseas, I explained. And what about us? Are you just going to leave your mother and me behind? He asked. Yes, I nodded clearly. Thank you for abandoning me. They stood speechless. I smiled and added, truly thank you. Because of you, I'm happy now. Then I walked past them. How does it feel to be abandoned by the daughter you once threw away? I asked one last time. They had no answer. Without waiting, I left. It felt like the final goodbye to my so-called parents. After that, I returned to my home overseas. Life with my uncle had taught me to work hard, and my efforts paid off. I got a job at a respected company, and later I was offered the chance to work abroad. That was where I met the man I married. My uncle cried tears of joy at my wedding. Soon, we had children, and we invited Uncle to join us. Now we all live happily together, my husband, our kids, and Uncle too. One afternoon, my sister stood beside me, smiling as she watched the children play in the garden. I hope I can meet someone wonderful like you did, big sis, she said. Don't worry, I told her with a smile. You'll find someone great. You're finally free from our parents' control. That's true, she said. But I need to get used to this new job. Why not try getting a law license here in this country? I suggested. She shook her head. I'm not interested in being a lawyer. I've had enough of doing what our parents wanted. I want to choose a job that I truly want. You're right, I said warmly, proud of her choice. After our parents abandoned me, a letter from my sister arrived at my uncle's house. In it, she wrote about how badly she was suffering under the heavy expectations and pressure from our parents. After talking it over with my uncle, we secretly arranged to meet her on her way home from school. From then on, we kept in touch without our parents knowing. My sister wanted to live with us, but because of my uncle's financial situation, it wasn't possible for him to support both of us. And more than that, our parents would never have allowed it. So she endured life with them until she was grown and able to plan her escape. It was a difficult road, but she endured it and finally found freedom. While our parents were busy celebrating her becoming a lawyer, she quietly moved out and became independent. I was, of course, there to help her. Even though she found a job here, she's still struggling with the new language and environment.
But I know she'll be fine.
She's tougher and more hardworking than anyone I know. After all, she survived our parents' strict control. She'll adjust quickly. I also worried about Uncle, but I told her he's planning to attend a language school. She smiled and said, "That's great. It's never too late to learn." His health has improved a lot, so now he can finally enjoy life more. You're absolutely right, I agreed. As for our parents, they wasted the inheritance selfishly and ran out of money. Even though they poured everything into my sister, in the end, they lost their jobs. When they sold the house, most of the money was eaten up by home loans. They begged relatives for help, but everyone turned them away. Now they live in poverty, and I've heard they fight constantly. I believe no parent should ever favor one child over another or treat their children unfairly, I said, thinking about the past. You're absolutely right, my sister said again, nodding. No matter what happens, Carol, I'll always be here to support you, I told her. You've already done more than enough. Thank you so much, big sis, she said. Seeing how much she had grown brought tears to my eyes. Just then, I felt a warm hand on my shoulder. It was a little smaller than before, but still full of love. I turned, smiling through my tears. Thank you, I whispered. Huh, my uncle said, surprised. I looked at him with a warm smile and said, Thank you, Dad. I love you.